The digestive system consists of a long passageway known as the alimentary canal or the digestive tract, and the associated organs, including the liver, gallbladder and pancreas. The digestive tract starts at the mouth and continues through the esophagus and intestines to the anus. Along its course, food is broken down and nutrients extracted, while waste materials are disposed of. If we follow the progress of a cheese sandwich as it passes its way through the body, we can start at the top. As we bite into the sandwich with the teeth, the tongue turns over the food and saliva is added to make a ball of food, which is then passed to the back of the throat. At this point, it chooses to go down the tube at the back, the esophagus. The esophagus is about 10 inches from top to bottom, and the food is controlled as it passes down the esophagus in peristalsis, which is like a Mexican wave, moving the food from one section to the other. So it's not a straight drop into the stomach, it's a controlled action. It takes about 10 seconds to reach the stomach. This is the first misconception about where our stomach is. As you can see, it's above the waist, even though we often point below the waist and say we've got tummy ache or stomach pain. The actual stomach is above the waist to the left-hand side and looks a bit like a banana. As the food is controlled going into the stomach, digestive juices are added and also enzymes. Digestive enzymes are simply chemical scissors. So that you can think of the stomach as being the body's washing machine, with all the little balls of food being the clothes, the digestive juices being the water added to the washing machine, and the washing powder being the enzymes. And with the strong muscular walls of the stomach, this is going to start churning all the food round, just like it would in a washing machine, with the end result that the enzymes are going to start chopping the food down into smaller pieces. It takes about 3 hours, depending on what you've eaten, for that process to take place. And towards the end, you can be thinking of the stomach as being a bit like a liquidizer. So the food leaving the stomach is actually a soupy consistency. Before it travels much further, this organ comes into play, the pancreas. The pancreas secretes digestive enzymes and insulin. Insulin regulates how much sugar is going into the blood. If your pancreas didn't produce insulin, you'd be diabetic and have to have artificial insulin injected directly into the bloodstream, as insulin is broken down in the stomach. Here is the liver, one of the largest organs in the body. It has over 500 functions, and one of those functions is to produce bile. Bile is responsible for breaking down fats, and it is stored in this organ here, the gallbladder. So that's all the gallbladder is. It's just a reservoir for storing bile. And you can think of the gallbladder as being a fairy liquid bottle full of fairy liquid, bile. Just a small storage container tucked away. It doesn't make the bile, it only stores it. Bile has the same function as washing up liquid, in as much as if you were to squirt washing up liquid onto a fatty pan, it would break down the fats. Bile does exactly the same. It breaks down the fat in the food. You can live without the gallbladder, and it's often removed if gallstones are found, and gallstones would just block the neck of the gallbladder so no bile is released. Both these secretions of insulin from the pancreas and bile from the gallbladder start to break down further the food. As it enters the small intestine, it's still a very soupy consistency, and it's now got 22 foot of small intestine to work round. And you can see some of these tight bends here. If you have very gaseous food, some of these tubes get inflated, just like a inner tube would, and you'd have a very bloated feeling. The function of the small intestine is absorption of all the nutrients in the food. You can think of it as being the body's filing cabinet. It's deciding where all the component parts of that cheese sandwich are going to go. It's going to send carbohydrates off. It's going to send fats and proteins all in the bloodstream. And the way it gets into the bloodstream, inside these tubes are cilia, which are very small protrusions where the food seeps through into the bloodstream. So all our food ends up being transported around the body in the blood. As we've seen previously, the blood is the body's transport system. Not only does it transport oxygen, it transports all the food we eat. Anything not required by the body continues round this long, complex 22 foot of small intestines until about 12 hours later it passes over the appendix, which is this cul-de-sac organ at the bottom, has no function whatsoever. It's just occasionally gets inflamed. It goes into the large intestine, also known as the colon. So we have an ascending colon, a transverse colon, and a descending colon, which goes into our little U-bend here, just like the U-bend under the sink, the sigmoid colon. The function of the large intestine is absorption of water. So you can think of the large intestine or the colon as being the body's tumble dryer. As the food enters the large intestine, it's very much of a diarrhea consistency. So if the body had a bug, if the food had a bug in it, or you had contracted a bug, the colon would be trying to get rid of that food very quickly, and you'd have a case of diarrhea. In that case, the colon has not had chance to do its job of extracting the extra moisture back into the bloodstream, and you'd become dehydrated. So when you have a severe case of diarrhea, doctors are always keen for you to drink plenty of fluids to replace the fluid that you've not got from the function of the large intestine. The faeces are then stored in the rectum, ready for evacuation. The whole process from eating the cheese sandwich to evacuation at the other end takes about 36 hours, depending very much on what you've eaten. If you've had a very tough meal with lots of meat in it, it would take anything between 48 hours to 60 hours to go through the system.